Okay, we are live. There we go. If I could say how many tech issues we've had getting ready for this, y'all, you wouldn't even believe it. But anyway, I'm so excited and pleased that you're here to join us today. Um, I have a guest that I'm so excited to introduce you to and get to spend time with. You'll notice that he is not there. A picture of Nikola Tesla is there, who is one of the movies that Joseph did. But Joseph is an award-winning producer and director. But his computer went on the blink yesterday. He has plenty of cameras, right, Joseph? Just not one on your laptop.
That's correct.
So we're going to go ahead and do this anyway. I didn't want to wait until the computer came in and all that kind of stuff. I think you're going to love his story because it is all about the stories, right? It's about who's there and what's happening and what you can tell. And I think documentaries do such a great job of that. So whether you're here live or you're watching the recording, thank you so much for being here because I know that time is precious. And but I think you're going to really enjoy this one. So Joseph and our meeting is such an example of the power of LinkedIn. And anyone who knows me knows what a fan I am of LinkedIn. But I was watching a documentary. They were interviewing Joseph. And I said, oh, that's really cool. So I reached out on LinkedIn. He kindly, graciously accepted the invite. And then we started talking. And then we had a long conversation on the phone. And then I asked if he'd do an interview here. And he said, absolutely. So we are here today because Joseph said yes. Well, first of all, because I reached out. And secondly, because Joseph said yes. And so I'm so thrilled. Joseph's in New York, and we've had several conversations. He's a fascinating man. So, Joseph, tell us a little bit about your background and when did you first get interested in filmmaking?
Well, I guess, first of all, thank you for reaching out. I really appreciate that. I'm glad that you're interested in about Tesla and what a fascinating man he was. Like so many people, I've always been fascinated by movies, and I was very young, and I remember every year. Do you remember the J.C. Penney catalog, the Christmas?
Yes.
Oh, I would go through that. They had a little Super 8 camera and a projector. I wanted it so bad. That wasn't something that was really affordable for us, and probably shouldn't have been purchased for a kid or a teenager. But I dreamed about that. I wanted that so badly. So I got a paper route, and there were a couple of elderly people on the paper route, and they asked me to cut their lawns. And I thought, wow, this could be a good business. I can make some extra cash here. So I was delivering papers during the week and landscaping on weekends. And I saved up and I bought this little Panasonic video camera.
Oh, cool.
And, yeah, with my friends, we would, we do little skits and short films and, like the equivalent of like a garage band. But instead of music, we were making films. That was our creative. So that's really how I got started.
And so what was your first film? I mean, was it with your friends or?
So the first film was when I was young and in school. They had a Super 8 camera, and I've always loved the stop motion films. And I did a little film about, it was called Won't You Be My Neighbor? And it was, do you remember the old Mr. Rogers?
Yes, absolutely.
The little town. So I had a little set of a little town, and you see the little car driving by, and then all of a sudden a giant monster crushes a car and takes over Mr. Rogers' neighborhood.
Do you remember that film? I think it's called Super 8. It's about a bunch of kids who do what you're talking about, except they themselves were the actors, but a monster comes from outer space. And if anyone hadn't watched that movie, it's Super 8, right? Is that the name of it, Joseph? I think it's Super 8.
There's also a Nicolas Cage movie, I think, by that title too.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll have to look it up. We'll put in the comments, but it's a cute little movie because to Joseph's point, it's kind of how kids start out and then, they want to do more later on. When are there filmmakers or influencers or even mentors that helped you shape your creative direction? I mean, people either you knew personally or people that you admired and respected from afar?
I guess yeah, definitely. I guess it depends how far back we go. If we go back to when we were young, I guess Bugs Bunny had the biggest influence back then.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
One of those cartoons, from the 40s and 50s that they'd rebroadcast when we were younger. But they were a great example of short format story building when you think about it. You saw the importance of the colorful characters, and they had witty dialogue. You could see the impact that sound and music had in creating a tone. So it was really a good little education, and it kind of gave me a desire to, I guess, a longing to create stories visually. But after that, you have to evolve and grow up, I suppose, and gain an appreciation for the more serious. And
Yeah.
the epic storytellers, they really had the biggest influence on me. Directors like Orson Welles. Um,
He was fascinating. I don't think we give him enough credit in society today,
oh my goodness,
just on what he did.
almost like Tesla. He just a very underappreciated for his genius and what he innovative cinematically. He was amazing.
Yeah, for sure. I hadn't even thought about him until you said that, but now my mind's all these different things of, yeah, for sure, for sure. So you went from as a child, young person with the camera and the monster in the car and everything, and then you move into documentaries like you do today. What are some of the biggest challenges? Because I think what's good about these conversations is other people can say, okay, he did this. This was a challenge. How can that help them? So what were some of the biggest challenges you faced just getting your projects off the ground?
Well, I guess the obvious answer for that would be obtaining financing.
Yeah.
You believe it or not, you can often find people interested in providing the funding. It's just they want to influence the direction of your work once they are involved, and that's the same if you're applying to a foundation or looking for a grant or a corporate investor or private philanthropist. It's all the same. So I think the most difficult challenge when launching a project really is retaining creative control while being an external source.
Right.
Which is why most of my films have been self-financed. So I could try to preserve that creative control. And that's really important with documentaries too. If you're
For sure.
expose a certain truth, you don't want to shoe in whatever contemporary issue or controversy or pet project of a person or organization that feels that they are owed something for supporting it, and they want you to sort of focus in that direction. So to keep the vision pure, I'm very careful of who I partner with.
Then that makes perfect sense, because unfortunately people give, then they think they get something in return for that, instead of the gift should be just giving you the funds and the resources, and then letting you tell the story that you want to tell. I'm such a fan of documentaries. When I'm in my office working, I've got my TV on all the time, and it's always documentaries because I want to learn something, right? Why did you choose documentaries over fictional storytelling, if you will? What draws you to the real stories?
Well, there's a practical side, I guess, and an aesthetic side. From the practical side, if there's a topic you want to raise awareness of, a documentary is something you can achieve with less resources. To be honest, it's
Oh, okay.
managing a giant cast. You don't have to build sets. You can use a small crew, so it's an achievable production process when you have less. That's the unglamorous truth from one perspective, but from an aesthetic perspective, documentaries have some advantages, definitely, when you're trying to expose the truth. You're showing photographs, the audience is meeting real people. There's more of an expectation of trust than you might get from like an over dramatized tale, where you're wondering what's been embellished.
Well,
So,
yeah, because anytime I'm watching a movie, I always get my phone out. And I'm like, okay, I want to see how much of this is real. And to
right?
your point, it's all, very, very little is the real. It's all glamorized for Hollywood or whatever setting that they're putting it in. Which you're right. I think with documentaries, you feel like plus they're putting the people back. When I first saw you and they were interviewing you, they had you were sitting there, but they also had your picture and your name and your credits to the movie and stuff. So you knew that it was the real person. You don't get that if you're just watching a traditional kind of movie, I guess, if you will, as far as, yeah, because I love documentaries. I think and I think we need more of them, I think it seems like that's a point. Are there more documentaries? Because it seems like there's so many documentaries now.
I think there are. I think a lot of it's a lot, and it's a good vehicle for a first film. because again, you can control the costs more, you can control the direction more, um, and you can bring attention to an important issue. So it's something, if it's something you're passionate about,
Right.
uh, it's a great way to start. It's, I guess the challenge is you want to try to keep the drama and the pacing of the fictional storytelling, but present it with real facts and try to keep the of the viewer. That's,
Yeah, that's a yeah, that's as I'm talking to you, I'm thinking about different things because that does because it also who's watching the film and how what their perceptions are, their I guess their quote unquote their reality as well. So I mean, I would think documentary filmmakers have such a more of a responsibility when they're telling the story because that's one of the reasons you're hesitant to take funds because you don't want someone messing with your creative process.
yeah, yeah. It's there is a responsibility, phew, but I guess especially with historical topics, I mean, the most
Right.
important thing is that you hope that a filmmaker is vetting the source material, and confirming it from different sources, um, different original sources, really, because there's a bit of a telephone game that went on in newspapers, historically, where an accurate story was printed and then that's used as a source in another newspaper,
Yes.
and then sort of the telephone game happens, and then maybe a biography is written from those articles, and then that biography is used as a source for later historical text. So you get this
Very.
bloated mythology that is not reality. So, and that's particularly true with a lot of the Tesla information that's out there. He's been mythologized so much. Um, there was a biography written by John O'Neill in 1944,
Wow.
the Tesla, and he knew Tesla personally. So perhaps he didn't maintain that critical distance from his subject, and that sort of helped mythologize him, and that became more exaggerated with every biography that followed. So you have to look out for that, and that brings up the other issue that documentary filmmakers have to deal with, and that's subjectivity. And I personally don't think it's even possible. Every documentary filmmaker, strives to be objective, myself included, and subconsciously, some of the filmmaker's bias is going to seep into the project. You're making so many choices, from
That's
who you
true.
do, what you're asking them, what you're focusing on. They're all deliberations from a notion or a premise that you started with. So you're starting with some opinion already. So I guess the responsibility comes through being aware that you are an objective and maybe forcing yourself to constantly evaluate your predilections.
Well, the when I first saw you and it was talking about the film Tower to the People, to your point, Tesla's dream at Wardenclyffe,
Mhm.
where you're talking about his vision and when did you first because I've always been fascinated by him, and you're right, depending on what you're watching, there's certain quote unquote facts, I guess, but there's also innuendos in all those, what first attracted you to Tesla and his story?
Well, I guess I became interested in Tesla when I did. He was really an unknown figure to most, believe it or not. I mean, over the past decade, that's changed.
Right.
Efforts of groups like Tesla Science Center at Wardenclyffe, and exposure through shows on the History Channel, which has kind of been a mixed blessing.
Yeah.
Portrayal of popular culture, that's helped bring him to the masses, and people know who he is now. Before 2012, really, Tesla was someone that we never learned about in school.
I know.
Yet he invented and he paved the way for so many technologies, and he never received the proper credit. In fact, he died nearly penniless and forgotten. So, and I was attracted really more to the mythology surrounding Tesla back then. The death ray, the earthquake machine.
Yeah. All those things, kind of like Leonardo in a present time.
Right, right. The time bending inventions and things like that. But the more I learned about the real things he invented, the factual, verifiable things, his real contributions to science, and,
Absolutely.
and the way he was treated. I got more interested in that. And it just made me more perplexed why I never heard of this person through my whole educational career. And here's a guy who, was a forerunner of radio, robotics, radar, remote control, the induction motor, X-rays, neon fluorescent lights, all these different things, microwave ovens. He made so many contributions to science, yet few still knew his name at that point. And he's someone who should have been as wealthy as J.P. Morgan, but he died nearly penniless. So
Right. Yeah, if it hadn't have been for the hotel giving it to him free, he wouldn't have even had a place to live.
that's right. He was homeless for a while, and that made the news, and that sort of embarrassed Westinghouse Corporation into taking care of him and providing that for him. And
It's
I think that appeals to a lot of people because there's like a vindication aspect to his life that many people who learn about Tesla, they're compelled to help correct. This person who did so much and received so little, and to die
right.
alone and with a small, you know,
On a
royal.
deep, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it reminds me of Van Gogh. I think Van Gogh died poor. His paintings didn't make money until after his death as an artist. I'm almost positive of that. Well, what do they say? History is written by the victors. I think that, Tesla wanted to do what, I've had conversations, what was best for mankind and to help the world, if you will. People involved only want to make money. But I love history. And I think it's a travesty that people don't learn about someone like Tesla. And then it makes you wonder who else is out there that maybe didn't have as big an impact, but we don't know about either. They're out there. We just don't
Yep.
know because no one's told the story.
And that's why we have to encourage more documentaries.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. Now
Yeah.
you've done a lot of Warden Cliff is in New York, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you've done a lot of work with, am I saying it right? The Eugene Science Visitor Center. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's going to be, tell us what that is and what they're going to do and that whole project you've been involved with. What is that?
Well, it's really exciting because the Tesla Science Center at Wardenclyffe is finally going to be opening up a Tesla-focused Wardenclyffe site for the first time in over a century. So this is the site where Tesla's giant tower, Wardenclyffe Tower, was. It's been, abandoned for many years, and since he was there, it's been over 100 years. So, thanks to the generosity of people like Eugene Sion, he was inspired by Tesla, and like so many in the community, he wanted to see a world-class science center develop on this important historic site, and we're so grateful. I hope that he'll inspire other innovators for the same goal. To help make this a global learning center.
Right.
We have a new executive director there. Her name is Kara Cannon, and she is fantastic. And she's going to help bring this dream to fruition. I don't really want to give away their plans, but there's going to be some spectacular displays, I think, and some unique educational events that many people are going to be interested in participating in.
And with technology, you can go there physically, or you can have, I would imagine, virtual kind of experiences as well.
I believe that's a major focus of what they're going to be doing. It's a way for everyone to be able to participate in this very special place. So I'd encourage people to visit teslasciencecenter.org and get on their mailing list and receive updates because it's going to be an exciting time and you could all be a part of it.
We'll put that in the comments. We'll put that in links so people will have it. So when I was watching all that in the beginning, when I first met you, I was intrigued by all that because I kind of think, I mean, obviously no expert, but I know a lot about Tesla because I've watched so many shows on him. And I didn't realize the struggle that they had gone through just trying to get the land and to be able to have this property to do what you're talking about. So I think that's going to be really cool for people to actually have a physical place to go to and or to experience it virtually. Like so many museums today are doing virtual tours, which I think are great because if you don't live in Venice, but you want to see something, you can, go online and see it. So I think that'll be the same opportunity for here. Your other film, Invisible Threads, Wireless to War, speaking of the tower, that took over, correct me if I'm wrong, over a decade of research just to get that done. Is that correct?
Yes, that was an untold story. And it's something that started with, it shows the importance of local historical societies and how we need to support them, because
Yes.
many of these stories are connected to larger world changing stories, and this happened to be one of those stories. So
Because you actually, the historical societies, which I think people forget about, and well, let me ask you this: are historical societies? I'm embarrassed to ask this. Are they common in most areas or not?
I mean, most small towns will have a local historical society, but sometimes they fade away. They're not.
Yeah.
And one of the saddest things are the people with all the knowledge, the experts. They age, and when they go, they take a lot of the history with them. Sadly, so
Right.
that's one thing I wanted to make sure didn't happen with this chapter of history, because it was connected to so many world-changing events. So
That hit the Invisible Threads. I've watched it 2.5 times. And again, we'll put the link in the comments. But that is a fascinating movie because it goes to show, we always think we're so ethnocentric. We always think everything's happening just right now, just to us, never before. When you watch that movie, you realize how history repeats itself. Unfortunately, we don't always learn, but it's a fascinating film. I mean, just a fascinating film. I just was so intrigued by it, and there's so much stuff in it. That's why it's taking me 2.5 times. And I have to finish the third time just because there's so much stuff in there that you when you do a documentary like that, Joseph, what's your first start? Do you have a vision board? Do you have a chart? What do you do to begin?
well,
You've got this idea. Walk us through that.
I mean, I start researching it first because, it's useful to know the material so you can get the most out of the experts that you're going to be interviewing.
Right.
You have to know what to ask them, and you don't want to blow an opportunity with someone that has a rare and important knowledge. So you do first, at least that's the approach I take, and then you search out your experts. I used many of the well-researched biographies that I read. I saw like Dr. Mark Seifer, whose book about Tesla Wizard. That was so well footnoted. As I spoke about earlier about going back to original sources,
Right.
he dispelled many of the myths of the earlier biographers by going to the original sources and getting confirmation from multiple sources. So that was a record that was very important. So I wanted to get him involved. I also wanted to interview the author of another amazingly researched book called Marconi, The Man Who Networked the World. That was written by Dr. Mark Raboy, and that is another fantastic book, which I recommend both of them. There's a complication shooting him because that was during the height of COVID, and he was in Quebec, so the border was closed, couldn't travel. And fortunately, I was able to hire a Canadian crew to film him, and I interviewed him remotely.
Oh, wow.
That really worked out great, and he's really a great addition. So that's how you get. Those were how we sought out some of those experts. Other experts were family members of historical figures in the film. That we had to track down. Dean Batterman was the grandson of the Telefunken plant manager Ludwig Batterman. He was living in Michigan, so I drove out there, spent a week interviewing him, scanning personal photos that no one had ever seen. Yeah, it's amazing. His father Norbert was the son of Ludwig Batterman, and he had a personal journal that spoke of his father's role at Telefunken, and it was invaluable into helping piecing together the story and the timeline. So those are things that, again, it's the local personal part that that exposes the whole world history.
Exactly. So let me ask you this. I would think, as you're telling me that, and I'm envisioning you going to Michigan and et cetera, are they pleased that someone's wanting to do the story?
Yes, I've been very fortunate in that as far as that goes. Another person was the grandson of Charles E. Apgar, who's another important figure in the film. And like Dean Batterman, he was the steward of his grandfather's photos and papers.
Wow.
And he was so kind enough to give us access to all these materials that had never been published. So
no one probably ever went and asked him for them, right? I mean, no one even.
It's amazing, and he was the family historian that, and he had other famous people in his family. His aunt was Virginia Apgar. So she was very famous in the medical field for developing the Apgar test for children, and
Wow.
daughter of Charles Apgar. So, but he kept the history of what Charles Apgar did, and gave us all these great materials, and made me realize that Charles Apgar was a bigger part to the Telefunken story than I had envisioned when I started. So, your documentaries kind of evolve. You start in one, and then you go where the facts are taking you, and you end up in a different place.
Do you
So
ever get more, because I'm thinking about like the invisible threads, do you ever get more people or stories and you can't include them all? How do you decide which voices or experts or whatever you're going to include? I mean, do you ever have too many, I guess is my point.
it, again, that's a very big challenge. The first cut of Invisible Threads was 3 hours. So, but you have to, and even with the under 2 hour version, you see how much information is in there.
A lot.
You have to be careful not to overwhelm people, and try to, you want to give some granular detail, but you also can't make them lose the whole story by throwing too much information at them. That's really one of the reasons why I started another project, developing Invisible Threads into a dramatic series proposal, breaking it up into 12 episodes, where I can include all the research that I wasn't able to put in the film itself. It's a shame. There's so many side stories, so many amazing stories that would probably make good documentaries on their own. Some of that material is available through the Vimeo link. If you purchase the film through that, you can get access to all these other parts of the film that were cut out. But even
Is the 12-part series, are those all done? Are those all complete? Is that what you're talking about?
that's just a treatment that we broke down the story into 12. We're looking for a streaming service to.
Okay, to take it deeper. Okay. Yeah. I would think there's just so much interest. I mean, you can't hardly turn on a show on History Channel in some form or fashion that doesn't have Tesla referenced. I mean, I would think there'd be a huge. So if anybody listening to this knows of someone else who would have access, Joseph would love to hear from you, because I think that would be a huge benefit. Because what they need is content. They're always looking for content, right? I mean, that's the big deal, content.
And this is a story that is unknown and true, and it's a story that really doesn't need to be embellished, which is the fascinating part of it. It's all true, yet it has all the dramatic story arcs of a fictional drama. It's really it's an incredible story, and I would like to get it to a larger market, and that would be one way if in doing a fictional series.
Right.
Do that.
Yeah, I think our young people deserve that. I think that because we don't want history to repeat itself, and we want to have people like Tesla who weren't given the opportunity, who were then just kind of erased from history, and not their story wasn't told. Everybody knows who, Edison is and all that, but very few would know who Tesla is. I mean, I think as I said, I watched so many films on him, but I think it was in the one I had watched with you where they were actually interviewing people, asking them who Tesla is. And I think there's the Tesla statues behind him, and they still don't even know.
That yes, and that's a criticism we receive. People think that those interviews were cherry picked, and those interviews were done in 2012. And sad to say, we filmed for over an hour and didn't find one person who knew who Tesla was back then.
Wow. No, I thought it was. I mean, because again, I wrote an article on LinkedIn several years, I think during COVID, and it was Tesla, the man or the myth. And the whole point was, if you hear Tesla, people would think about Elon Musk and the vehicles, right? They wouldn't think about the genius of Nikola Tesla and all the things that he contributed. So when you're a producer and you're a director, so when you're filming, you kind of mentioned it earlier, just touched on when does a story change directions, or what happens to make that happen, or when do you see that coming, I guess?
You don't see it coming. It really just it happens. And sometimes you're trying to verify what someone you were interviewing says, and you come across a fact that is true or not true, and you have to go in that direction. Sometimes you have to edit stuff out that you thought you were going in one direction, and sometimes you get new information from, say, a family member, or from another source that comes your way, and that puts you on a different direction. So it's you, even though you start with a very sophisticated outline, your beginning outline never reflects accurately your finished product. It's always going to be, at least in my experience.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I bet that's true though, because you, like you're talking to the gentleman, he had information that you didn't know about because no one had ever shared it or whatever. I can see that happening for sure. You can't, you mentioned before the streaming, the 12-part series and stuff. Our media landscape has evolved so dramatically. I just saw an article the other day, something about how people are frustrated. Sports fans are frustrated because they don't know where to find their sports shows, men and women, college and pro, et cetera, because there's apps, there's traditional TV, et cetera. How has the streaming platforms or social media or independent distribution, what impact has that environment had on documentaries like yours in general? Has it helped it? Has it hurt it?
That's a very interesting question because, yeah, as you said, the media landscape is constantly changing, and in some cases, not for the better. For a time, independent films, they boomed on platforms like Amazon,
Right.
but then they changed their royalty structure, and filmmakers once would receive a significant share from the rentals or the purchase, and now they're only being offered a few cents per hour viewed. So it's a challenging time for new filmmakers or people with niche content to earn a living. I've been very fortunate with my titles, but it's much more difficult now to break in with a sustainable. And over the years, some platforms have even stopped accepting independent documentaries as content. So
Wow.
just a shame because there's so many important voices with stories to tell.
For sure. Our youngest granddaughter is at NYU, and she will graduate in May with her degree will be in screenwriting. I don't know what the official thing is, but
Wow.
that's what she wants to do. And it's a challenge. You worry about that because the landscape is changing so much. But people who want to do what you do, they have such a desire, an innate desire to tell stories and to share information. So I hope somehow that there people are able to do that, where people can benefit from it. When people watch your documentaries, what do you want them to walk away with after, let's just say, hidden threads? What would be something you'd hope an audience member or whomever would walk away with after watching that film?
I guess I would like for them to have an appreciation for history and see that there are lessons from then that are relevant today. I'd like to, I don't know, invigorate a spirit of conservation in them and an understanding of the value of our past and the importance of its preservation. In regards to Tesla and the Tesla films, I'd like people to see him as an example, as a determined person who achieved what the scientific consensus believed was impossible. His induction motor that could be powered by a rotary force of alternate current. The scientific community at the time said that was impossible. They said it was a perpetual motion machine. So I want people to not be limited by current understandings. I want them to be inspired to think outside the box like Tesla, without fear or ridicule as Tesla endured, because the solutions for today's troubles, they might come from a courageous visionary that was perhaps inspired by Tesla's story.
True.
And if one of my documentaries might play a tiny part in leading someone to learn more about Tesla, that would be amazing. I guess that's what I would love for them to feel after watching one of my documentaries.
Oh, that's so special, Joseph. Yeah, because you'd want a young, I say young person, can be any age, but you especially think about young people. You want them to benefit from all the struggles, and that poor man, he went through them because he lived to be like in his late 80s, right? Wasn't he? How old was he when he passed? I mean, so he had a whole life, and for the most part, it was a life of frustration because everything he came up with, people said that can't be done, or they didn't want to fund it for all the wrong reasons. And so it'd be nice to know that his story did, inspire someone else. If it hadn't have been for them, hearing his story. So are you working on any films now?
Well, right now I'm focused on trying to help the Tesla Science Center create a world-class museum for Tesla, and focusing on developing the Invisible Threads treatment into a fictional series. So that's where my focus is right now. So not working on documentary currently.
Do you always have a notepad with you or a journal or whatever that, or your phone? Are you always writing down ideas or anything? Is that something you do?
If I had a camera on my computer right now, you'd see my desk, which is unfit to be seen by people. There's post-its and crumpled up napkins and everything, all with something written on it.
Some
So
idea or something you saw or heard or wanted to pursue?
yeah, so that part is it seems unorganized, but it I know where everything is. It's just all over the place. But yeah,
Someone else wouldn't, but you know where it's at. What haven't I asked you that you'd like to share? What's something that Debbie didn't say or didn't ask you about that you think's important? Anything?
I I mean I just would like to encourage people who are interested in the story of Tesla, maybe connect with the Tesla Science Center at Wardenclyffe, get on their mailing list, subscribe to their socials. If you have the means, consider supporting them through becoming a member or a donation. If you're local, you can be a volunteer and help them establish this museum worthy of Nikola Tesla's fertile imagination. We call it the People's Museum because it was saved by a crowd fund by internet comic strip artist Matthew Inman. He started a crowd fund that led to the saving of this important piece of property. So the people saved it, the people are helping restore it, and I think that's really an important part of community, and it makes it very special. So I hope people continue to support them.
I think that's one, social media gets a lot of bad raps for obvious reasons, because there's always a dark side and unfortunate side to stuff, the negativity and, all that. But I also think social media is such a powerful resource for us because we can tell stories and share information that we couldn't before. I did a podcast yesterday with Frankie Picasso, and there were 5 of us, and the whole thing was talking about our charities we support. And because of social media, we can get stories out there and information out there to all the people we know that you can't do in physical space. There's only so many that's limiting, right? But on digital space and social platforms, we can do it. So to your point, I would hope that people would watch the films, that they would support the museum and what you're trying to do up there and what everyone's trying to do. It's so cool in the movie when I watch. I remember seeing the guy mow the yard. He's mowing the lawn just to help in different ways. And his point was, he's always been a fan of Tesla, and this is something he can do to help. And that's such a simple thing, but it's a big thing because if you have enough people come and do it, if everybody that hears it gives $5 or 10 or whatever, that can make a big impact for all those things you're trying to do at the museum that the new director wants to do in different things. So I cannot tell you enough, Joseph, how much I enjoyed this. You and I've talked several times. Every time I just get so enamored with your history and your story and all the things you do. So I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate everyone who's watched it again, live or recorded. So we'll put the films and different things in the comments. I'll go back and do that. So you'll have that. People will have that when they go online. But please, if you haven't reached out to Joseph on LinkedIn, please reach out and connect. He is not as active on social, but he's active enough that he accepts connections. I'm proof of that. So I appreciate it so much. But it's been a thrill. And next time we'll do it, we'll have you at your desk, and we'll have a vision of all those notes and crumpled up papers and stuff that you have that we didn't get to see today. But bless you so much, Joseph, for everything, and for all those who came in and tuned in with us. Everybody have a blessed day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Debbie.
Thank you.